20% of the world's oil. One single, 21-mile-wide gateway. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a geographical feature, it is the jugular vein of the global economy. In early 2026, that vein was nearly severed. Today, we investigate the brutal reality of how the U.S. military locked down the Gulf, and the secret technology that made it possible. You've seen the sensational headlines: Iran lost control, U.S. brutal attack. But what actually happened on March 17? It wasn't just a random strike. It was a calculated, surgical application of force known as Operation Epic Fury. The goal was simple: reopen the gates, or destroy the locks. For decades, Iran has built what it calls missile cities, hardened, subterranean bunkers carved deep into the Zagros mountains along the northern coast. These sites house the Ghadar and Qatar cruise missiles, designed specifically to turn the strait into a kill zone for any ship that enters without permission. Conventional missiles weren't enough. To hit these targets, the U.S. turned to a new beast, the GBU-72. This is a 5,000-pound advanced penetrator bomb. While the world watched for nuclear escalations, the U.S. was busy testing the physics of deep Earth destruction. We're talking about a weapon designed to burrow through meters of reinforced concrete before waking up. National security analysts have noted that the 2026 strikes may mark the first combat use of the GBU-72. It represents a sweet spot in bunker busting, heavy enough to destroy a mountain tunnel, but light enough to be carried by an F-15E Strike Eagle. This changed the math of the conflict overnight. Operation Epic Fury began at 0300 local time. Over 90 targets were identified. CENTCOM confirmed that multiple 5,000-pound munitions were successfully employed on hardened Iranian missile sites. The cage was being dismantled, one mountain at a time. The threat wasn't just under the ground. Iran's coastal defense relies on high mobility. Truck-mounted launchers can fire and disappear into tunnels within minutes. The Ghadar missiles, with a range of 330 kilometers, mean that nowhere in the strait is safe. This required a constant, overhead presence of hunters like the A-10 Warthog. On April 12, the situation shifted from airstrikes to a total naval lockdown. President Trump announced a formal blockade of Iranian ports. This wasn't a suggestion, it was an ultimatum. Any tanker bound for Iran was intercepted. The Gulf was now under new management. The results were immediate. During the first 24 hours of the blockade, not a single ship made it past the U.S. line into Iranian waters. Merchant vessels were warned, and most turned back. The global oil market held its breath as the iron ring of U.S. warships closed around the mouth of the Gulf. To enforce a blockade of this scale, you need boots on decks. The Pentagon deployed 5,000 Marines from the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit. These are elite sea-to-shore specialists. Their mission: maritime security operations, boarding suspect vessels, and protecting the remaining oil platforms from sabotage. Iran's response to the blockade was asymmetric: swarm boats. Hundreds of small, fast attack craft armed with rockets and torpedoes. They are designed to overwhelm a destroyer's sensors. But in 2026, the U.S. answered with its own roar, AI-integrated sensor fusion and the devastating fire of the A-10's 30mm cannon. Iran's most potent long-range threat is the Abu Mahdi cruise missile, boasting a range of over 600 miles. By deploying 5,000 Marines and moving carriers further out into the Arabian Sea, the U.S. effectively moved the pieces off the board, staying out of range while the bunker busters did their work inside. Why the obsession with tunnels? Because you can't kill what you can't see. Iran's Ghadar and Qatar systems are often kept in deep storage until the moment of launch. The U.S. strategy in 2026 wasn't just to hit the trucks, it was to collapse the entrances, burying the arsenal before it could even be fueled. With the strait blocked to Iran, the U.S. had to ensure the rest of the world didn't starve for energy. Tankers not bound for Iranian ports were escorted through a secured corridor along the Omani coast. This managed transit is the new reality of naval power in the 21st century. To understand the GBU-72, you have to look at its bigger brother, the 30,000-pound MOP. While the MOP is designed for nuclear facilities like Fordow, the GBU-72 is the tactical scalpel. It's the weapon that won the Battle of the Coastline without starting World War III. Visuals from the Gulf show Marines fast roping onto tankers and drilling for boarding actions. This is high-stakes diplomacy at the end of a rifle. The presence of 5,000 Marines acts as a psychological deterrent. It tells the IRGC that any attempt to mine the strait will result in a direct, physical confrontation. Karg Island, the terminal for 90% of Iran's oil exports, became a focal point. While the U.S. avoided a total destruction of the infrastructure, the blockade effectively neutralized it. The tankers sat empty, and the Iranian economy, the fuel for its military machine, began to run dry. The air over Hormuz in 2026 is the most congested combat space on Earth. F-35s provide the eyes, while A-10s and F-15Es provide the teeth. Every movement on the Iranian coast is tracked in real time. If a garage door opens, a 5,000-pound bomb is already en route. The global impact was felt instantly. Gas prices in Europe and Asia spiked as the blockade began. But as the U.S. security guarantee proved effective for non-Iranian vessels, the market stabilized. The hidden city of global trade was safe, but only because of the steel wall in the Gulf. By late March, it was clear Iran had lost control of its most powerful strategic lever. The ability to shut the strait was gone. The hardened sites were smoking ruins, and the hidden launchers were trapped under collapsed mountains. This represents a permanent shift in U.S. naval doctrine. The move from freedom of navigation to active lockdown suggests that the U.S. is no longer willing to play cat and mouse in the Gulf. The 2026 operation was a demonstration of absolute dominance. What makes the 72 so special? It's the warhead casing. It uses a specialized explosive fill that focuses the blast downward, rather than outward. This maximizes the cavitation effect inside a tunnel, ensuring that even if the bomb doesn't hit a missile, the pressure wave destroys everything inside. U.S. warships in 2026 are using advanced AI to track thousands of small objects in the water simultaneously. Drones, fishing boats, and attack craft are all categorized instantly. This digital aegis makes an Iranian swarm attack nearly impossible to execute successfully. The 5,000 Marines aren't just there to guard ships. They are an expeditionary force. They are capable of seizing coastal islands and turning them into forward arming and refueling points. This allows U.S. helicopters to stay in the fight longer, directly off the Iranian coast. There is a haunting image from the blockade, rows of Iranian tankers, anchored and silent. It's a visual representation of a nation disconnected from the world. The U.S. didn't have to sink the ships to win, they just had to make sure they couldn't move. The lesson for any nation attempting to close a global choke point is clear: technology has caught up to geography. Mountains are no longer shields, and narrow straits are no longer traps for the U.S. Navy. Post-strike assessments show that over 85% of Iran's coastal cruise missile capability was neutralized within the first 72 hours of Operation Epic Fury. It was perhaps the most efficient air campaign in modern history. Today, the strait is open, but the tension remains. The U.S. hasn't left. The 5,000 Marines are still there, and the Strike Eagles are still patrolling with 5,000-pound penetrators. The Gulf is locked down, and the key is in Washington. Was it brutal? Yes. Was it necessary? Depending on who you ask. But one thing is certain: the U.S. demonstrated that in the age of deep penetration bombs and Marine expeditionary units, no choke point is truly owned by the nation that sits on its shore. The hidden city of the Gulf is now a fortress of U.S. and coalition power. As we look at the ruins of the Zagros bunkers, we see the end of an era of Iranian naval leverage. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Operation Epic Fury. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the ever-evolving front lines of global security.